Hi everybody, today I'm going to talk about listed buildings and converting them and so on. And the reason for that is during my 43 years career I've converted many listed buildings from 1 or 2 grade 1s, grade 2, grade 2 star. And in 2 of my 5 books I talk further about listed buildings, so if you want to know more information than I'm going to give you shortly, then they're in my books. And actually I've got another book coming out on commercial property, which I talk about listed buildings as well, because many of the listed buildings in the UK are commercial buildings, and it's important how you deal with them with tenants and so on, because it's slightly different than for the residential developments. And of course, do remember that I speak a lot about the listed buildings and converting them in my seminars that I do at Canary Wharf. And you can book on my seminars at johnhowardproperty.com. So here we go. I get asked quite often about listed buildings, historical listed buildings. And over the years, I've converted many of these buildings into apartments and smaller houses. So a lot of people get put off purchasing these types of buildings, these lovely historical buildings, because they are misinformed or very concerned about a number of things. So today what I want to do is very briefly just hopefully explain the good things about listed buildings and why they are listed, but also the drawbacks as well. So a listed building is of a special architecture or historic importance and considered to be of national importance. Now there are only 400,000 of these properties in the whole of England. I live in one, which is grade 2. Now, for grading, there's grade 1, which is almost impossible to convert or do anything with. Very tricky. I have done a couple of grade 1 buildings, but my goodness, I wouldn't advise anyone to try and convert them or do anything to them. They are incredibly difficult to do, and Historic England will be all over you. They are the government body who look after these buildings. So grade 1, I would just go and pay to go around a beautiful castle or a beautiful country house that is a grade 1 with National Trust and enjoy it. I wouldn't try and actually develop, convert one or develop one. Grade 2 star is slightly different. So we recently have converted a grade 2 star building in Southwold, which was the Lloyds Bank. And grade 2 star, it's very possible to do everything you can do with a grade 2, which is the next one down, you can do in a grade 2 star. So don't be put off if it's grade 2 star. One of the things you do have to do though, is make a historic reference to every room in the building since it was built, a history of every room and what it was used for. So when you put a planning application in for a grade 2 star listed building, you have to do this historical report, which is really like a book, and it's fascinating. Normally a professor of history will do it for you at a university or somebody like that, but it's a lovely book, and normally it makes a lovely book. And of course you can leave that book. When you come to sell the apartments or whatever, what we do is get some printed and we leave it as a gift for the ongoing buyer, because it's history of the house or the property since it was actually built, which is quite fascinating. That costs between 10 and 15,000 to do, and you'll have to do that as part of your planning application and listed building consent. So the listed building consent is what it comes along with the planning permission, and that will say what you can do and what you cannot do within the listed building. So grade 2 star, don't be frightened by it. It will cost you more to do than a grade 2 building, which is the next one we're going to talk about, which is still of historical importance, but it's of less importance than a grade 2 star, and the grade 2 star is of less importance than a grade 1. So it's grade 1, grade 2 star, grade 2. So with a grade 2, you can probably do more internally with a grade 2 building than you can a grade 2 star building, and certainly a damn sight more than you can with a grade 1. So most buildings in the UK that are listed are grade 2. Doesn't mean that you can do what you want, you can't. For instance, if there was a staircase there that you wanted to take out because it wasn't in the right position for you, you cannot take fireplaces out unless they're modern fireplaces, or staircases and things like that. But what you can do is block them up and leave them in situ for the next generation. So it's all about preserving the building as much as it was originally for historical importance and for the next generation, so on and so on and so on. So with a Grade 2 building, again, easier to convert than Grade 2 star. You still need listed building consent, which comes with the planning permission, and you can be a bit more flexible. They were a bit more flexible with you than a Grade 2 star. Now with Grade 2, you don't need the historical report or book, and Historical England do not get involved from day one, which they do as part of the planning permission with Grade 2 star and Grade 1. When you start stripping out these buildings to repair them or to convert them, do not get rid of anything you are pulling out. If you think it's of any historical importance, take a photograph of it, leave it on the side, because the listed building officer from the local authority will want to see what comes out, what's behind the walls, if there's panelling or whatever. So do not destroy anything. Take lots of photographs, and please don't think because it's a very nice fireplace and it will look nice in your house that you can rip the fireplace out and move it, because if you do anything like that, you will be fined substantially and you could even go to prison. So you do have to play by the rules. You do have to play by the rules. If you do not have listed building consent, and I cannot stress highly enough how important that is considered unauthorised work. So please do not do it. Now, what are the drawbacks in purchasing, living in, converting, developing a listed building? Well, of course, one of the things is that the maintenance, well, the conversion will cost more than it would if it wasn't a listed building. I would say probably 20% more, 25% more on the whole. Of course, that depends on the condition of it and everything else. Don't think you can change the windows to PVC, because you won't be able to. You'll have to restore the windows as they are. If they need replacing, they have to be handmade and made specially for that property. And interestingly, with building regulation approval, which you need to get, of course, as well, if there's anything that is impossible to do under the new building regulation approval, then the listed building officer at the council will have a battle with building control at the council, and between them they'll sort it out. So normally the listed building officer always wins, because the most important thing is retaining the historical building as much as possible for future generations, and that's why they'll give you permission to change it from a house or an office to back into a house, or convert it to flats, because that's the only option there is to retain the building. And it's all about retention, and it's all about the building being looked after for the next generation. Now, what else is going to be more expensive? Well, general maintenance after you've done all the work going forward. So if you're selling the flats off on a long lease, the service charge is likely to be higher in a block of flats that is listed than if it isn't listed. Brand new building, obviously, maintenance would be less. They say, the Times newspaper did an article about listed buildings quite recently and said that it takes 55 days longer to sell a listed building than it does a normal house. Well, I don't know how they work that one out, but I can assure you that a listed building that is attractive, in good condition, will be popular. These buildings are popular, especially if they've been refurbished to a very high standard. Very, very important. Grants could be available. If you're going to try and get a grant, try and make sure that you apply before April, because most of the money comes from central government for these grants in the financial year that starts in April. So if you leave it till November, there'll be no money left. If you start it in February, hopefully a grant will come through and there'll be some money available in April. But always check with your listed building conservation officer at the council. You know, they are fanatic about these buildings. They love them and they want to see them preserved. So you're not fighting against them, you're working with them. It's very important that you work with the local authority with these buildings and don't try and be bombastic and decide what you think is best for the building. They're historical experts in themselves and they know what you can do and what you'll be allowed to do and what you can't do. So the answer is they'll cost more to do, insurance will be higher, maintenance will be higher, but there are some good points about listed buildings.